Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2. In this video we're going to be talking about mastering shares and being able to create and manage the Unraid shares for your NAS server. In other words, these are going to be used for um, this is going to be the file server that you can use to access your media or data that you're going to store on your Unraid device onto the hard drives. Um, so the way you go ahead and do this, let's go ahead and log into our Unraid server. So using the credentials you've set initially, go ahead and log in. And so what we want to do is once we've logged in, we're going to go ahead and visit the shares section. And you're going to see that there are already shares that are already listed. So you have app data, you have domains, you have ISOs and system. All right. What we want to do is we want to create our own share. And this is where we're going to store our media data. We can also create a share for, say, our own type of personal file backup, or just a network share, so we can have our network files saved directly to the Unraid server. This way we can access those files across the network instead of having them on some type of external hard drive in which we have to carry with us. So this is a much easier way of saving that data and being able to access it across the network. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to create our first share folder, and we're going to call it media. Okay, so that's where we're going to store a lot of our movie type of files for future use. And you'll also see how when we store them there, you can also see in later videos how we'll be able to reference those share folders and be able to use those within additional Dockers that we have set up. Okay, so let's go ahead and add share, and we're going to call this folder media. Okay, and you can give it a description, media files. All right, minimum free space, I usually keep it at 0. The primary storage, now you can set it to the array or you can set it to cache, being that if we ever need to transfer files to the media folder, okay, we would like to do it in a faster manner. So what I would recommend selecting is using cache, okay, as the primary storage. So since we have a 1 terabyte hard drive, the files will be sent directly to the primary storage, which is the cache drive, which is that 1 terabyte SSD. And then once that's done, then the secondary storage, it'll get moved over to the array. All right. Now, there are different allocation methods, okay, and what this means is as we begin to increase the amount of hard drives in our Unraid array, okay, we want to be able to have those files spread across those different hard drives equally. Okay, now one of my recommendations that I typically use is most free. All right, I want my lowest hard drive in the array to basically be able to take that data and continue filling itself up. And this way we're not putting all of the data on a single drive, we're spreading it out. But in this case, since we only have one hard drive in our array, using most free for now is fine. Everything's just going to go to this one hard drive, but we have future plans to add additional hard drives with more space. So having this set like this is totally fine. Okay, now you can do split level. I prefer to just automatically split it, so it's going to select the hard drives as needed. If you have certain custom recommendations for this, you can set it up any way you'd like, but using the automatic split is perfectly fine. Included disk, I have it set to all. This way it uses all of the hard drives in the array whenever it's splitting up the data that's being transferred into it. And then excluded disk, you can set this to none, but if you have certain drives if you have certain hard drives that you don't want to use, you can select that here as well. Now, the way this works, the mover action, Okay, the mover action, it transfers the files from the cache drive to the hard drive. Okay, so after you've made your transfers to the cache drive, or you send it to your share, okay, in the back end, you're actually transferring directly to the folder that's currently residing on the cache. And then in the back end, at say a certain interval or a certain percentage, however you have the mover set up, is when those files will get transferred from the cache to the array. And then those files will then be stored on the array for future, I guess whenever they're needed in the future. Okay, so but this is the way that I typically have my stuff set up. It's just a faster way to transfer files into that share. Okay, so let's go ahead and select add share. All right, and that's done. Now we are then prompted with some additional options. So down here where it says SMB security settings, all right, so here's our share name, which we've listed as media. Okay, now one thing to keep in mind that I didn't mention is it's typically a good idea just to keep all these lowercase, and that's for future use and referencing. So let me go ahead and make that quick change. So we're going to label that as media with all lowercase, and the export. Okay, so if you select no, that basically just means that it's not going to show up whenever you start browsing under the network drive or for the network share. So if you go to / 10.0.2.114 and you're looking for the SMB shares, it's not going to show up. Okay. Now if you select yes, that means it's advertised in the folder. If you have yes hidden, it means the folder is available, but it's not going to be advertised. So if you type in the SMB share, so it's 10.0.2.114 / and then media, then you'll be able to access that folder even though it's not being advertised. It's hidden, but it's still yes, so you can still get to it. All right, so in this case we're just going to go ahead and go yes, so this way it's advertised and we can easily just click into it. All right, case sensitive names auto, or you can just force lower, and that's kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. So it's just best to use lowercase for naming, sake. Okay, now here's your security. So say for instance if you created a share and you want it just to be open, no security to it, you can use public. You also have secure and private, so if you wanted to lock this down, you can use either secure or private. This way nobody can access it via the share on the network. All right, so in this case we're going to use it as public. We're going to go ahead and hit apply. All right, so now we've just applied that, and now we have created a brand new share called media. Okay, just give it a moment. All right, looks like it's done. Now you'll see it's listed here as media files, SMB as public, and you can see how the storage works. So it goes from cache to the array. All right, and there you have it. So now if we were to open up our, if you're in Mac, I'm using Finder. So if we open up network, if you were to go to, let's see here. All right, so if you're using Mac, just open up your Finder window, okay, and then go ahead and we're going to browse to connected server. All right, we're going to use 10.0.2.114. Hit connect. Now I think it should prompt you for a username and password. Being that it's public, we're going to go ahead and use guest and then just hit connect. And now we're able to see the media folder. Okay. If we were to do something like go to server or connect to server, and we just selected that, I think it's just going to take us default straight to media. So it's the only folder that's being advertised on this NAS, and so that's why it takes us there. Okay, and then from here you can go ahead and create, you know, new folders. So say for instance, if you have backed up movies, you can stick those there. If you have backed up TV shows that you own and you want to go ahead and save those, just for safekeeping, okay, you can go ahead and set those there. And so now you have a folder for movies and you have a folder for TV shows. You could also create another folder for personal videos. Okay, the possibilities are endless. So now you have access to these folders on the network. So if you want to access these things locally, it's now possible. Okay, I think for now I want to take this one off because I don't really want to use it. And so we're just going to use movies and TV shows. All right, so that's our share for media. Okay, now let's say for instance if we wanted to create a private share for just you specifically, and this way we can add some type of authentication or security to our share. Okay, so what you would want to go ahead and do first is let's go ahead and create a user account. All right, so we're going to create a user account. Let's call it let's call this user Bob. Okay, so that's Bob's username. Okay, we can just put regular user. You can put whatever type of description you want on there. Password, we're just going to go ahead and type the word password. Okay, so now that we've given Bob an account, okay, he's now listed as a user. All right, so we have our root user, we have our share access user, which is named Bob. Okay, now let's go to our shares and let's add another share. Let's call it Bob, or Bob's folder. We can just call it Bob. Okay, we can put Bob's folder. Okay, and then primary storage, we can do the same exact thing as we did before. We can set this to cache, so the files get transferred directly to his cache folder. Okay, and then from there it gets sent over to the array using most free. All right, all the options are pretty much else the same. You can see the mover action, cache to the array. Okay, now that's been set. We can go ahead and add share. And one other thing I want to touch on right quick, and then you can play with this as you feel free. This section right here. So here's the SMB security settings. All right, now these options are pretty much by default that show up. Now the export is set to no. All right, but the way we want to do this is we want to read settings from, say, another folder. Say for instance we select media. We want to pull the settings for the SMB security settings to Bob's folder. So that's something that you can do. All right, now say for instance we want to go ahead and advertise yes. All right, we want his folder to show up in the shares. Okay, now we want to add some type of security. Now if you ever have any questions about some of these options, you can just easily put your cursor on the label or the option, click it once, and it'll pop up a menu. So it's basically just a quick menu that you can reference. All right, so public is all users, including guests, have full read and write access. So it means if you have it set to public, means anybody can just jump on this folder with no type of authentication. Secure is all users, including guests, have read access. So you select which of users have write access. So basically, if you wanted to have guests be able to read this, they can do that. Now, if you wanted to have more of a private type of access, okay, this will not allow any type of guest access, but it will allow a certain user or users to have read and write access. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and select private. Okay, we're going to hit apply. Okay, and now we've just secured this folder. All right, so now it is no longer accessible from anybody else on the network. So if we were to pull up this folder now, and we go to folder or connect to server. All right, let's go ahead and browse to it. So you're going to see there's two shares. There's Bob and there's media. Well, there's Bob. Let's hit OK. Well, it's not going to allow us access because we've selected private. Now, if it was set to public, it would let us in, okay? Or if it was set to, I forgot what the other one was, but it'll allow us to have read access. But in this case, we're securing it down to Bob. So we're just going to go ahead and close this out, and we're going to give Bob access. So now Bob has read-write access, and apply. So if we try this one more time, you'll now see it's asking for access for Bob. So we'll click on Bob. Now the reason why it's not allowing us access because we didn't put in a username and password. I believe I currently have this open, so we're going to go ahead and close this back up, and we're going to try again. Okay. So we're going to go connect to server. It's going to ask us for connect. Okay. Now it's going to ask us for a username and password. This is where we're going to type in Bob and then password. Okay, we're a registered user. Connect. And now we're gonna click on Bob's folder, and now we should have access into Bob. So now we can go ahead and create whatever files and folders we want to create for Bob, and those are securely and safely accessible across the network. All right. And so that's pretty much how to set up some type of security for shares or network shares that are on the network. Okay. And so yeah, so this pretty much concludes the setting up a share. Okay. I would also like to quickly touch on mover tuning plugin. Okay, so by default the mover action, okay, this doesn't actually happen just yet. Okay, in order for this type of in order for this mover action to actually take place, you'll need to install an application or plugin. I'm sorry, it's a plugin called mover tuning. Okay, and the next video I will talk about how to set that up, okay, and all the recommended settings that I have configured for my server, and this way you can have this exact same settings matched up, and this way the mover action will begin to move those files from their cache drive to the array. Okay. All right, so that concludes for today, or for this video. See part 3 on how to set up the mover tuning plugin for your Unraid server. All right, guys, until next time. Thank you.